Paul Machin.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks so much for coming on, mate. This has been a long time coming for both of us.
Yes, the roles are reversed.
The roles are reversed. Yeah, absolutely. I'm hosting for once. I'm presenting. God, I hope I live up to your lofty standards.
I mean, it's not like you've got a short of experience in front of cameras with microphones in your face.
Well, I've dabbled. I love that hoodie, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much.
I thought that when you walked in. Is that official LFC merch?
Yeah, it's very, we have our own merch, which I normally have to kind of, represent with. But I saw this, I was like, yeah.
I'm feeling that.
Thank you.
I never buy anything at the club shop.
I have a splurge every now and again, and it's normally on like just side apparel, so like t-shirts and stuff like that.
I was really disappointed when Liverpool Football Club signed the deal with Nike. I was expecting like the best gear. I was thinking we were going to all be dripping in this like wonderful merch, and it just didn't really materialize.
But yeah, Adidas is coming back, which I'm really looking forward to. But I've got this real fear that like they've done all this cool stuff, and I'm seeing like, oh, Juventus and Arsenal and Real Madrid and all this fabulous stuff they're doing, like training gear, trackies, everything. And I've just got this fear that they're gonna get Liverpool and they'll hark back to like the mid 2000s when everything was really oversized and a bit crap. So yeah, I'll take what's good while I can get it.
Well, I shall take this opportunity to formally congratulate you on all of the success of the RedMen TV.
Oh, thank you.
It's been amazing to watch, and I've obviously kind of dipped in and out. I've done some guest spots for you over the years, but I've sort of watched a lot from the sidelines, and to watch it grow from when we first started in that back room. I mean, for anyone listening that isn't aware of what the RedMen TV is, it was the first of its kind, wasn't it? The first proper fan channel, representing Liverpool Football Club from a fan's perspective with fan voices. And I think since you guys sort of set the template for it, it's taken off unbelievably.
I mean, we're at a point now where anyone that people would publicly recognise as being from Fan TV came after us.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And that's not to say that we directly influence things, but you'll know in a sort of creative space, once an idea is out there, it's amazing how quickly that sort of populates, even with people you're unconnected to, really. So yeah, it's our 15th year anniversary at the end of this season.
Wow.
Yeah. And that means it's coming up on the 12th anniversary since you and I first did a video together.
Oh God, I'm reminiscing now. They were lovely times. I remember it was just a sofa, wasn't it? Was it your place?
Back room of my house.
It was the back room of your house, and it was like a sofa, and you literally had like an LFC flag up on the wall and a little bit of merch. And it was so spit and sawdust. And it was basically filmed on like a Nokia, wasn't it? I mean,
it certainly looks that way now. Yeah, absolutely. That was
has it not aged well?
That was cutting edge technology probably at the time. Yeah. It's things have certainly progressed a little bit, tech wise since then. But yeah, as well.
And it's won awards. You've won awards for it. You got the Northwest.
Yeah, the Northwest Football Awards. Yeah, we've won, I think, 4 of them now.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because there's some award ceremonies that are a bit sort of fly by night or whatever. And look, I'll take any awards to hand out, I'm being honest. Like,
mate, you welcome to the club, man.
Yeah.
I'd push my nan down the stairs for a sexiest male award right now.
100%. I'd be cutting ribbons at like opens and chip shops and all that if I get a bit of byline. But the it's the Northwest Football Awards was like the first time I went to that was like a legit one, where no expense to spare, proper food. You'd get actual footballers there, and that's always a mark of it because lots of people want to do stuff around football, but actually getting the people of that in that lifestyle as well to leave their homes of an evening to come out to something, the food and the drink have got to be good if nothing else. So yeah, no, Northwest Football Awards has been pretty good to us over the years.
Man, it's been great to see, man. You and Chris just absolutely smashing it. What made you want to start the RedMen TV? Because I know you went to university, didn't you? You went to Sheffield.
Sheffield,
and you did media there, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But what made you want to, because I know a lot of people that have done media studies, media degrees, all these kind of things, but there's a difference between doing that and wanting to be in front of the camera and wanting to host it.
Yeah, I think it was, I just wanted to do something. So I moved back to Liverpool after, I think I'd been in Sheffield 4 years, and obviously you're in uni, so you're not there solidly, of course, but I finished it. I'd anticipated basically failing my degree. That's what I'd budgeted for because I'd done so paid so little attention to it by the end that I got a job working in pubs and stuff. And then it came through and I had actually graduated. And I was like, oh, crap. I should probably do this instead of being a pub manager. So, yeah, moved back to Liverpool. And I was like, right, cool. I need to put this to some sort of good use. And it was just about coming up with ideas then of like, what can I do? And how can you break in? Because I had zero connections in any world whatsoever. I hadn't even built up like you do a uni course. There might be people on your course who go into that world. So maybe you've got favors you can curry. I didn't go enough. So I had friends who worked in the building trade and were teachers and with all this kind of stuff in a completely different city to what I'd moved back to.
Absolutely no help whatsoever.
No help whatsoever. I mean, my mum was a teacher, my dad was a social worker, so it wasn't like they were connected to the media in any way. But so I was like, I need to find something to do. And effectively, over a few years, came up with a bunch of different ideas. It was like I was just working my way down them. I'll try this and see if this works. Try this, and then eventually got down to RedMen, and that was something about. I had a good feeling about it, and I had a real. And we took it to LFC TV, and they turned it down, and that kind of lit a bit of a righteous fury under me, really. And so yeah, and again, it's not quite as, it's a bit big-headed, but not totally accurate for me to portray it this way. But when you hear that talk of like someone turned down the Beatles, I had that in my head of like, I want them to be that. Yeah. I want in years to come them to go, oh, we were offered this and we turned it down. It was to be their biggest regret. And that is certainly not the case. I'm certain of the people in that room do not give a shit that they turned us down at all. But we did manage to make a success.
And I guess finding something that you're passionate about as well is such a huge part of it, because then it doesn't feel like quote unquote work, does it? Mm-hmm. You're going, well, I'm obsessed with Liverpool Football Club anyway. I've got a season ticket. I love chatting about the Reds. So why not turn that into a viable business?
Yeah, I to be honest, I wanted to be a director. So I had the idea for this. Yeah, like writer director is what I always considered myself. And the problem is that if you want to write and direct, you can write, but you can't direct unless you've got someone to direct. So that was the pathway for me, where I did a couple of narrative things or short sketches or whatever that just be me in front of camera. Because again, who are you gonna put in front of there? One of my best mates was writing screenplays and sending them off. He got funded a few times from the Film Council, which is great, but like that also meant I was almost in competition with him for that kind of stuff. And so when I wasn't getting funded, well, what was the point of that? What was the point of writing a script that doesn't see the world? So I wanted to start making things. That was how I got in front of it. And then that's the Liverpool thing came about. Everyone's had this conversation, the post-match in a pub, 5 pints in, and you go and you're just talking about the team, and then after a while you go, oh, this is better than what's on telly. We should, this should be the show. Yeah. This should be the thing. And yeah, I was the only idiot really who actually took that and went, and everyone went, oh right, yeah, sure you will.
Well, you weren't the only idiot.
Yeah,
there was Chris Pajak as well.
Yeah, my favourite idiot, my best idiot. Yeah,
the Wilma to your Fred.
Yeah, exactly. The J to my silent Bob. My best friend, and he had no desire to be involved in any of it. But again, I just felt like I was looking to replicate fantasy football with Deal and Skinner.
Was that the kind of template for it?
Well, the idea it was like set in a living room, on a couch, and people with their feet up. I was looking back at some clips of it before, and like, but David Baddiel's got his shoes off, he's got his sock feet up on a table in front. I'm like, that's too much for me. We never quite went that far, but we were filming in my house. I could have done, quite easily. So it was the two front man, and look at Soccer AM as well. Obviously, Lovejoy and Chamberlain on that one. It was like, I like the dynamic of having two people, my best friends, so we had that kind of camaraderie already. I just put a camera on us and talk Liverpool, and then when we expand beyond that, we'll get our wider group of mates in. So the pilot is just me and Chris and a bunch of my mates just dicking about. Like,
wow. That's what have you watched it back?
So
has it been removed from the internet?
It's been. I think the early stuff has been. It's still there, but only I can access it at this point. I'm bringing some of it back. I'm making a video at the moment, so I've had to go back and revisit some of it. And look, it was what it was.
It's funny because like I always remember, especially Chris, like he was quite awkward in front of the camera. And now you watch you guys talking, and I mean, if you think about the live show that you guys did recently to raise all that amazing money for the children's hospice, like to do that as confidently as you did without any formal media training.
Yeah, well, and the thing about the Zoe's Place stuff is that was all Chris. Like, he went, I want to do this. He organised it. He set it up and he fronted it. And I'd been away, and I kind of came in and went, where do you want me? And they went, well, you don't have to be involved. I was like, well, I'll be involved, but you just put me where, and that's totally different from what it had been in the past, where Chris was working full time and he'd come over after work and we'd film for a couple of hours till, like, midnight, and then he'd be halfway home and I'd go, I didn't turn the microphone on, and he's like, you'd hear the sound of slamming brakes, and then he'd come back again. But yeah, he had no form of media training, but I knew he'd be good because the difference between the two of us, and it's why we work well as a pairing, is that Chris is very heart on his sleeve, very, there's no filter with him. He's a much more interesting person just day to day than I am, when I'm a bit more thoughtful and a bit more calculated, probably the other side of things. But I think about what I'm going to do and what I'm going to say more than he does. Yeah. And I'm like, if I can channel that side of him, I can do all the nuts and bolts of, like, I can put a framework around it. But if I can just let him be him, then people will gravitate towards that. And, we've definitely had our ups and downs, some mad moments, but to the point, I've known him now for 20 plus years, well over now. 20, we went to school from 11, but we've been friends since we were about 17. That's a long time to know a human, and he still surprises me on a almost daily basis.
That's so lovely, mate. That's so rare, Yeah. I don't have any friends. It probably says a lot about me. I wasn't going to say I don't have any friends. I don't have any friends from school left. I don't have anyone that I'm in touch with. And I don't know if that's partly because I've moved around a little bit, or life just kind of gets in the way. And I think as men, like, to have that friendship with another man, that honesty, and that, you can be vulnerable together. You can go, mate, I'm feeling a bit shit. Things are a bit crap. That's lovely.
Well, there's a point on that where, so we were at uni, and I think it was he'd left university at this time, and I was still living away, and I was skint. So, like, I couldn't have, it was one of those houses where your gas is on a meter, so you'd go and put a fiver on and let the house warm up. And this is Sheffield, and anyone knows Sheffield will know, when it's warm, it's very warm. When it's cold, it's ridiculously cold. So, but I was just skint and miserable and depressed. And I remember, like, messaging my mum and dad, because it was like pay as you go time on your phone as well, and saying, like, I don't know what to do. And there was a home phone in there, like a landline, but I couldn't afford to use it. And they just said, like, yeah, ring Chris. And I said, well, I can't afford to. Just ring Chris, and whenever the bill comes, we'll sort the bill for you. And again, so when I say I'm poor, it's poor within a very middle class framework. I'm well aware, like, what I mean. But to the point, we then spent hours just talking on the phone, and by the end of it, I was a million times better. And this is like 19, 20 maybe, when you don't really have those, you don't really think to have those kind of conversations. But yeah, we've always had each other's backs. We've been at each other's throats, but plenty of times, because close proximity, that happens too. But yeah, like, that's definitely whenever it gets bad, it is nice to have someone who knows you well enough that you don't have to explain your whole backstory to be able to to get to the next stage.
You know, don't you, when the other person is struggling? You know when there's something not quite right, and having that, like, lovely kind of symbiotic connection is just the loveliest thing. I mean, I have got it with some people, but it's just not got that. I haven't got that history behind it.
But it's weird, because having friends for a long time can be a double-edged sword like that, particularly for men, because it's very difficult to shake off the shackles of who you were when you were growing up. So sometimes it can be mired in, like, here's a stupid thing you did when you were 15 that is one of the most mortifyingly embarrassing things you've ever done, and you could really do with no one ever talking, let alone knowing about that again. So that can be hard to have those kind of relationships between people who've known you for a while. But if you can ride it out, and with the right people, certainly. Like, I've still got a few friends from school, but I don't have that level of that depth of relationship with many, because that is a very rare thing to have.
Yeah, it is really rare. And also, I think it's difficult because we kind of constantly reinvent ourselves, don't we? We're always reinventing ourselves. I had a friend of mine come on the show a couple of months ago, and he spoke about it, and he was like, just because I was that person, I'm not that person anymore, and I can reinvent myself like that. All I have to say is I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I don't behave like that anymore. I don't adhere to those parameters anymore. And it's really easy to do that with people that I think you haven't known for that long. But yeah, when you've got history with someone.
Yeah. And that's really interesting, that, because I thought it reminds me of a piece of advice that my mum gave to me when I was younger. And my mum and dad, actually, they both gave up smoking just before I was born. And they said, what you do when you want to give up smoking, you don't say, I've given up. You say, I don't smoke. Because no one offers a cigarette to the person who doesn't smoke, but you'll always offer to someone who's given up. So if you're going to make a change, make it, and don't be ashamed of making it. But you're right, it can be difficult to do that, because again, you walk into your social group with a mad new haircut. Your mates are they're not just going to let that slide. Cool, good on you. If you've got that group of friends, and I think I dream of having that. Sometimes you do need to kind of, and look, as you grow, and a lot of people don't want to grow. A lot of people are happy. Certainly people who were in our social group. And I remember saying it at the time, like Chris was a good example of it. There was a time of our lives where we were sat in bedrooms or living rooms of student houses, and no one really left there for hours upon days upon end. But gradually we did, and Chris was the first one to get out of that room. And I followed. It was a couple of years really before I met my girlfriend and now wife, and she helped me sort of get out of that room. But there's some lads who are still there, and because they were happy with that, and they never wanted to change. Some of them got stuck and maybe never recognised it. Others, it was just made that was all their ambition. If you've got ambition beyond that, then you actually need to be able to sort of change and not be ashamed of changing.
Yeah, it's safe, isn't it? It's like a comfort blanket.
Yeah.
Your identity becomes comfortable and safe because it's how people know you, and you can play that part really, really, really well. And it's only one day. It happened to me. I mean, you and I have been friends for a long time, and you've I'm sure you've seen a change in me in the past 10 years. I got to the stage where I was sat at home and I'm thinking, and someone's ringing me to go out to the pub, whatever. And I know what a night in the pub with that person entails. I know it's not just a pint.
Yeah.
And it's a Tuesday night. And I'm trying to come up with excuses and reasons why I don't want to go to the pub with that person. And I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. Yeah. I am not that person. And it's a lovely thing. It's a lovely, lovely thing. You and Chris ever really fallen out? You ever had any big arguments? I know you must argue over content and stuff.
Well, no, yeah, do you know what? Less so on the content stuff, because I think he often understands. He's the one who often says to me, he goes like, what should this look like? Because that's always been my sort of side of things. But we've fallen out over stupid things. And I think, we both got 2 kids each, and that early stage where you're totally sleep deprived. It was a joy, because I had my 2, and then he had his second, and the difficulty level, the difficulty spike between having 1 kid and having 2 kids is off the scale. It's unimaginable when you can't fathom just how difficult it is. So I was waiting for that to happen to him, so he'd gain a bit more of an appreciation of why I was so done in constantly. And then actually no, what happened was he was just as done in, and then we were both really knackered. So you'd be working till all hours and you'd be on something, and you needed someone to be able to bend, and neither was capable of bending, because we were both at our absolute limits of humanity. And so we definitely fall out. So Chris is very, again, because he's a heart on a sleeve kind of guy. If something does his head in, you'll know it immediately. Whereas I will pick my moments. If I've got, generally, it's very rare. It happens every now and again. I'll just lose my shit over stuff. But that's normally if I haven't found a safe way to kind of get it out and get all the things that are doing my head in out, or you swallow it for so long and then eventually it kind of does it in. But he'll just go out. So if something's annoying him, and then every now and again that I'll go, okay, cool. But if it catches me on that, when I've had my limit of taking shit, then that's normally when it crosses up. But it's been, I can probably count it on one hand over the years.
Yeah, he's a lovely human being. He's really sensitive as well. When I was going through some shit, he texts me so many times, just checking in, just little thing. It means the world.
And he hates notifications as well. So that is a big mark on what he likes you. He hates WhatsApps and he hates notifications. So if he's actively checking in on you, knowing full well that he'll probably get something back, that shows how much he cares.
He's a grumpy old fucker, isn't he? Oh mate, so how's it all changed? Because obviously, you know, the RedMen has gone. I mean, do you mind me asking how many subscribers you've got now?
This is not me being like, oh, yeah,
No,
I
no, no,
don't
no.
know.
This is
No,
legit.
no, I
This
mean,
is just factual.
it's over 500,000. I couldn't tell you.
Wow.
I couldn't tell you what it is. 500. Yeah, it's over 500,000. I've stopped paying attention.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah. It is. It's, you know what? It's like that, and it's one of those things where it didn't happen. It didn't just happen. So it's a bit like when you like watching your hair grow. And so, you know, all of a sudden you kind of look at it and go, "Oh wow, I really need to sort that out." Or, you know, there was no point where it ever went pop. It's just been such a long sort of, you know, ongoing process, really. So yeah, if we were at 500,000, I remember us being at 450,000 and 400,000 and 300,000. Yeah. So it is really cool. But yeah, it's more for me about like just the enjoyment of it as much as anything.
You still
else.
enjoy it?
Yeah, I think definitely a little less, and I think some of that is just it's a long time to be doing anything. You know, that's the longest job I've ever had in my life, and I never considered it a job for the vast majority of that. So that's, you know, it wasn't like I was counting the days like you do. Again, working behind a bar where you're looking at the clock every half an hour, praying that it moves forward another minute. I think it's because of how big a thing it's become. It's become its own living, breathing thing. So I was talking to my wife about this the other day, how there was a point at which every element of RedMen TV fitted inside my head, and now I've let it out, and it doesn't go back in there anymore because there's so many moving pieces to it. So it's become a business, and that becomes responsibility. So it's not as fun, and it's not as enjoyable because, listen, if it went tits up 10, 12 years ago, okay, and I take my own household down, but now there's like, you know, you've got probably like a dozen people around. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, mate. I mean, even if you find those, because I mean, I don't need to ask. I know that you do. If you find those moments of joy and those moments of like, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this. Yeah, I think that's enough to kind of keep you going and motivate you through it, isn't it?
Without a doubt. Yeah.
I think back to, you know, when you guys sat down with Jurgen Klopp, for example. Yeah. I mean, that's one of those moments, isn't it, where you just go, how did we get here?
Yeah, no, they're the things that I've seen in the future. So we're in this phase now where I remember the early stuff, because again, I've lived it all. So the early stages where you were begging and stealing and borrowing to make it exist, and then you were knocking on doors and people were ignoring you, and you'd be sending emails out and asking, and you were just gasping for legitimacy. And then there's come a point in the last 3 or 4 years where we start asking people who we would never have even considered, we would never dared even, you know, ask for. And they're not just saying yeah, but they're like really excited to say yeah and get involved in stuff. And like Klopp, weirdly, was almost like the biggest of that, where he watched not everything we did, but he definitely cast an eye over a lot of the content they were making. He talked to us about it. And so he wanted to speak to us, which is wild. Like, you know,
that's crazy.
But like, you know, most managers before that, like, wouldn't care or have a clue, you know. So
Rafa Benitez wouldn't have tuned in.
Yeah, I mean, now he probably would. But yeah.
He's got loads of time on his hands.
He's burned a few bridges since the Liverpool days. But
and Kenny Dalglish as well.
Yeah,
that's another one who you've got. I know you obviously know Kenny's son, and you know you've got that connection there, which obviously helps with things. But to have Kenny come in for the Zoe's Place live of his own volition, and he wanted to come in and be with you, didn't he?
He's almost the best example of what I'm talking about. Was we did a Jordan Henderson documentary a few years ago, and this is around the tail end of COVID at times when we're doing some of the filming for this. So like we asked Kenny, because he was the Liverpool manager who'd signed Henderson for Liverpool, would he come in? And he said yeah, and I was like, what the hell, Kenny Dalglish? Yeah, and he came in, and we had to keep our distance from him, and he had his mask on when we went filming and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then the Zoe's Place came around, and he was again grateful, couldn't do enough to, you know, wants to hang around and speak to everyone and get involved. So yeah, it's the doors that have opened that you don't really, because you don't feel like you've changed. You know, it doesn't really feel like time's moved on.
Well, no, because you're still in your own head. Yeah. You'll still get up in the morning and you're like, right, Paul Machin.
I'm fascinated by other people's perception of me and us and what we do, because I can't know that. I get negative online feedback from lots of people. I get really positive feedback from people in person, but it's like beyond that kind of like bubble. It's always interesting to see when people actually, know who you are and what you do.
And it's changed a lot, hasn't it? I mean, the content that you guys kind of you sort of touched upon it before, actually, when you said that RedMen has become this sort of beast that you're not really steering anymore. You're just kind of feeding it almost. You fatten the beast. Yeah. Which is what I actually say instead of saying I feed my cat. I fatten the beast.
My wife says that when she puts dinner on the table.
Oh, mate.
Anyway,
that's unkind, isn't it? No. But have you had to sort of adapt the content in as much as? I mean, I know obviously things have changed and viewpoints have changed and things have become acceptable and unacceptable, and you have to kind of skew everything, don't you, towards a societal sort of means. But what's that look like now?
Well, it's been through so many different sorts of iterations. I mean, again, it's been around so long, and again, because you've lived it, you don't really recognize it. But the technology's come on massive. Like, I mean, my personal channels, 99% of the content is run through my phone. It's filmed on my phone, it's edited on my phone, it's uploaded via my phone. Like that's a completely different world.
That's Mach TV.
Yeah, and that simply wasn't possible when we started, as it was tape cameras, and that kind of stuff. And even things like, you think about like mainstream media, there's things that you can say. Like, I remember Chris Moyles getting in trouble for using gay as like a negative slang, like in that, like the way that you go, oh, that's so gay, and that was like Radio 1, and he got absolutely slaughtered for it. But that's mad. That's like mid 2000s. That's how people still, lads and stuff talked about things. There's things, and then that's an extreme example and a pretty obvious example. I think that you shouldn't be doing, but that's things like, again, what's acceptable in society moves on. It becomes bigger so that you can take less risks, and that's not necessarily in terms of like opinion. We've always kind of said what we feel and think, but actually in terms of what you make, you can't be outlandish as much anymore, because there becomes a formula to what you've done and what people expect from you. So in the early days, we could literally just throw stuff at the wall and see what worked. But yeah, so we used to do sketches. I mean, again, you famously to me did an Arsene Wenger impression on a random Christmas special. We had you with the fake nose and the wig, but we just we stopped doing the sketch stuff because it was too subjective, and I loved it, and that was definitely much more. I enjoyed the comedy writing much more than any of the other parts of it, but it became a thing where Soccer AM was kind of dying out and fancy football was long gone. People weren't really doing that kind of thing anymore, so it was a lot of work, and it looked off, and it was very like, you got some nice comments, and when people laugh, they laugh, but when people don't like it in the football space, you get slaughtered. So it became harder to do some of the more creative things.
The weird and wacky stuff.
Well, there was a point where I was looking for me. I saw it on this day on Facebook from probably about 2010 maybe, and it said, couldn't find my phone and my keys, couldn't leave the house for work. Turned out they were underneath my Kyriakos wig, and I was like, no one had ever committed that sentence to the universe prior to that point, nor after. So yeah, that was definitely where we were. Whereas the wigs and the random stuff they're still somewhere in a box in the office, but it's been a long time since they've been used.
Get the wigs out again, Paul. Get the wigs out for old time's sake. Eh? Come on, I'll do my Wenger for you. My historical Wenger. Is it a case of do you feel like you have to kind of think about what your audience want and give them that, or is it more that you're like, right, this is our template, this is what we want to do, and you either like it or you don't? Because I think there's a danger sometimes, especially with fan-led media stuff, of trying to second guess what your audience wants. I watched some of the Arsenal TV, and I feel like some of that is becoming quite pantomime.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of it's legitimate anymore. Some of the characters and the voices that they've got on there feel like they're just playing to an audience that just want to tell them that they're idiots.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
No, it's performative, I think, a lot of it, and I don't like the performative side of things, because there's a space for letting go and allowing yourself to feel
Yeah.
things in the moment. But there's also, when, I've seen people stand outside football grounds, and when you're surrounded by a crowd, it's easy to get riled up, and then you're feeding off the energy of the people around you, so you can get carried away. But I've seen people that stood on their own, shouting stupid stuff, and that doesn't vibe with me. And we definitely had things where, there was a few different people inhabiting that space in the early doors after we started. Fremantle, who own X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, that company set up a couple of fan TV channels. They were run by TV producers, and so they were all about, here's our headline numbers, here's what we're looking to get. As long as we're covering this football club, and it was a Man United channel, and they don't care. They actually want people to make dicks of themselves, because when they make dicks of themselves, the views go up. So they don't care whether United win, lose, or draw. They just care about the numbers. You had Arsenal Fan TV, which was independently owned, but they hit upon a formula which was give everyone who wants to speak gets a voice and can speak, being the voice of the fans. And so they'll do 20 videos after a match. There'll be loads of positivity on there, but it's only the really negative ones that ever go viral. So if you're not following them actively, that won't filter into your timeline, because it's got to go viral for it to permeate your own personal bubble. And then what you had is us, where we never really had like those kind of characters, so we couldn't do that. And I refused to chase the views because I had to walk down the street. So like, if Liverpool lost, it was I didn't want to make content for non-Liverpool fans. So, and look, some of it creeps out.
And you didn't want to make it about you either.
Yeah.
Like, here's my reaction, but I don't want people to walk away from a match or walk away with the phones and thinking this guy's a dickhead.
Well, yeah, but also that I don't know. There's a sense of responsibility, and no one told me to do this. It was just whatever, how I felt about being a Scouser and being. I think we got a lot of negative press outside of the city anyway. So if you go in front of, if you put yourself out in the world and you're just acting like a bellend, then it's just gonna further stigmatise the city and embarrass the city and what have you. And certainly I know people feel that way just by having someone with a Scouse accent do anything. And there's nothing, there just is. People don't like to see that sometimes. But I've always tried to be conscious of, it's about loving the football club and it's about the joy rather than being the angriest or being one, and actually trying to be sensible and level-headed when you can, because you got to walk down the street in Liverpool. If someone thinks you're a dickhead, they'll tell you you're a dickhead. And if you've been a dickhead, then fair play. That's why, you know what I mean? If I've been a knobhead, I don't mind someone telling me that I've been one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, but I've always thought that the content, not to blow smoke up your beautiful arse, but I've always thought the content on RedMen comes across as first of all really authentic, but actually really interesting. And I level this at the Anfield Wrap as well. If I'm going to consume any kind of, especially football media, I want to feel like I've learned something. I want people to tell me things that I haven't necessarily thought of, be that a tactical thing or be that an opinion.
Yeah.
I want to come away thinking, wow, I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, well, look, I was raised by my dad as a Liverpool fan, and my dad, and he's such a cool guy, and he's very, very intelligent. He's very well read. He's really well educated. So when he speaks, people listen. And I always wanted to be more like that. Whereas it's funny because he's got two brothers and a sister, and they're all similar but different in kind of different in their own ways, particularly how they support Liverpool. So his youngest brother, Uncle Mark, is very similar as well. He's got a good opinion and he's very well backed up with it. His elder brother is brilliant, but he's the guy who hates a player straight off the bat. So like all he's got to see is one thing that he doesn't like, or maybe he's read it somewhere that he respects, and his opinion is formed and coated in diamond from then on. And me and my dad always joke about like, oh, your uncle doesn't like X, and look, he's normally right, which is the hardest part of it. Like he's called so many Liverpool stinkers over the years, but me and my dad were always the optimists of, well, they play for Liverpool, support them, let's see what good they've got. So I don't, it might be like, I don't know why Igor Biscan is in the team as an example. I don't know what a niche reference for people. I apologise wholeheartedly, but imagine a player that didn't take off, spent a bit of money on, there was some high hopes, and it never really worked out. But why is he there? Why did they buy him? What is the purpose? What is he trying to achieve? Because I genuinely believe, weirdly, nobody puts their life into a trade with the aim of being rubbish at it.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
people practice and train,
Especially
to
a
be good.
vocation like football.
So it's always for me and from my dad about trying to see what it is that's meant to be happening. If it's not happening, fine, and you can say it's not happening, but not to be horrible about it. And so, like, yeah, the amount of that was kind of my basis in stuff of like try and see the positive and trying to, so not just unfiltered opinion of like, yeah, just because that's everywhere. Everyone's got one of them, and there was certainly that niche when we started that there wasn't just opinion. There wasn't just Liverpool opinion out there that you could access. Now that's everywhere. So where was that? That was like stage one. For me, that was 2010, 2011, 2012. That's what football content looked like. Isn't it great? I've got an opinion, and here's an opinion. Here's my mate's opinion. Here's that other guy's opinion. Okay, cool. Everyone can do this now. What have you got? Well, considered opinion or analysis, or speaking to experts and trying to get better, hone your craft and grow your knowledge base, so that you're giving something again, educated opinion over just raw opinion, I think.
Yeah, but and those people that you're talking about, like the RedMen and the more I'm trying to think of another example. I quite like the guy at the Spurs TV guy. I think he's quite good. And Rory Smith, is it?
Yeah, Rory Smith is Rory Jennings.
Rory Jennings, that's who I meant. Rory Jennings. Yeah, that sort of thoughtful. It's still opinion, but it's actually got some merit behind it. He's actually done a bit of research behind it. I think that's the stuff that I really listen to. You mentioned earlier about about getting some pelters on Twitter, and if I just wanted to know, because you guys put yourselves out there like a lot for criticism. I mean, it's all there. I'm kind of semi-protected because I'm in this sort of Hollyoaks bubble, and I don't write the scripts, I don't write the stories. I am just the vessel for somebody else. But you guys, it's quite raw, and it's quite you're quite exposed. I mean, I know Twitter used to be quite a nasty place. I'm not on it anymore. I don't really know what it's like now. I mean, what's the experience like?
Worse. It used to be fine. It used to be kind of a place where you go and you find other people with your shared interests. And there used to be a thing called Follow Friday, and you just list a bunch of accounts and say, these are great and here's why they're great. Everyone should follow these.
They were great days. Yeah, hashtag Follow Friday.
Exactly. It was a real kind of loving amongst the community that you wanted to be involved in. And then it's just become more and more of a mire of people sucked into giving an endless amount of opinions, and unfortunately it's now a monetized platform, such that you're monetizing misery, and I don't think that was necessarily the aim. But the problem is that anyone with even a cursory understanding of social media will know the negativity gets far more retweets and shares than positivity. And look, super positivity can, and we proved that with the Zoe's Place stuff. And, when someone loses the wedding ring and someone finds it for them on Twitter, these are brilliant things, but they are so far outnumbered by just people being horrible and nasty. And then now you've got horrible, nasty tweets, and you've got a bunch of people underneath them who are getting there for engagement and saying increasingly ludicrous things that they don't believe to rile people up so they can get more engagement and get paid more money and stuff. So there's a bit of that. And then, we've also crossed over, I think, to a point where people, because we've been around for so long, that it's been part of it's always been part of their football culture, whether they really consumed us directly or not. We've existed, if we're going 15 years. So if I was 18 years old, there's adults supporting Liverpool who have never known football without fan TV as part of it. So we, in some regards, have become a little bit like the TV people that we grew up on. So less dehumanized and just seen as part of the furniture, and not realizing that you're actually saying something to a real connected person there, and actually not someone who can wrap themselves up in their mansion at the end of the night, with all their money, or have their social media manager take that off, and so they'll never look at it. We need to be on there because it's part of making sure that our businesses grow and stay afloat. So the negativity is, I haven't actively flicked onto my mentions tab in about 3 years on Twitter. It's sad because there is some great stuff that I'm missing out on, some great interactions, but it's not worth the gamble. And I'm not a gambling man. with money, and I've learned as I've gotten older to stop gambling with my mood and happiness as well, because that is just the odds are stacked against me. At this point, particularly on Twitter.
Yeah, and I think because it's such an important tool, or it should be such an important tool for a number of reasons, for sharing, for promotion, for visibility, for making connections with people. Because that was what I always used to love about Twitter, was you could make connections with people.
That's probably how we got in touch with you.
Yeah, it probably. I bet it was. Yeah. I bet it was at the James Sutton.
Yes, of course.
Saying something mad. I used to say the wildest things on Twitter, just for a laugh.
Yeah. Yeah,
but they weren't horrible. I wasn't like hateful, but I'd be like, "Oh, this will probably get a reaction."
Exactly. Yeah, and I think a lot of people do that, and it's hard again because you can't convey tone.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that you just see people say wild things. Like I know the way that Steve Hall, who works for us, he tweets some things out, and I always read it in Steve's tone because I know what he's doing. But I know Chris reads it sometimes and goes, "Oh, don't go," and I'm like, "Yeah, you've totally, like the fish hooks in there, mate. Just that's what he's gone for. Let him, if he wants to go for that, let him go for it." But like he put some tweets out about Messi after Liverpool beat Barcelona, and had like death threats and all kinds of Barcelona and Messi fans, and you know what I mean. This is people think social media is real, and and people think text messages are real, and they're not. It's all part of this network of like
wild,
of just over planned, over thought, and ultimately just a lot of it's just stuff you would never say in person, but it doesn't mean it's not.
They'd never
never
say it in person to you ever.
Yeah,
I think I've had like maybe 1 or 2 instances of people coming up and saying you're a shit actor. And I'm like, oh,
can we say cut, director, before we carry on with that part of the scene? No.
Yeah, that's just my colleagues, man.
No, but you're right. Very, very limited times. And the problem is football's an uncomfortable place at times to go to because it is very laddie and very like you get gangs of lads, and if someone says something before that, no one wants to be the butt of the jokes. So if you walk past and you can tell people are like laughing or smirking or saying negative things, that can make it for an uncomfortable feeling. But in terms of actual direct confrontations, again, you're talking a fraction of a tiny fraction of a percentage compared to if you saw it on social media, you'd think there was an army out there who were desperate to come and tell you what a bellend you are at any given moment, and in reality it doesn't.
Well, that's it, because someone's called you a bellend and 2,000 people have liked it, so you're like, right, well, there's 2,000 people there that think I'm a bellend.
Yeah.
Let's get them all in a room.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've seen the reaction that you and Chris get at the match when when you're walking down Anfield Road or you're in the pub or whatever. It's so positive. Yeah. People are delighted to see you.
I'm still stunned by it at times. Like, can I be having a terrible day? And again, it's one of those things like someone can reply to something, and because I don't actively look for it, occasionally it gets so big that people will tell me about it outside. So when it comes into my WhatsApps from like friendly sources, I know that that's something that needs to be pruned or addressed or whatever. But you can have those bad days, and I can go to Anfield and just someone will just grab me and go. And
well, they're always they're kids as well. When it's little ones coming up and going, "Oh, can I have a photo with you? I'm a subscriber." You're like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, the funniest ones of late are where someone goes, "Oh, can I get a photo?" Yeah. You go, my dad absolutely loves you. And it's like, okay, cool. That's where we're at now.
Oh, mate. Yeah. My mum used to watch Hollyoaks. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah. Your nan loves it, does she? Amazing.
Yeah.
And you've done live shows as well, which is such a different beast.
Yeah. It's, I just love challenges. I just love testing myself and what we do, and and seeing if there's a new way to do it. So we went from pre-recorded content that used to take hours and upon days to all cut together. Then technology changed so we could live stream so much, and that came with a cool extra pressure. And then now we played the O2 Arena in London and sold out the Limelight in Belfast, and and in Dublin, and that to have like 300 odd people. I've done the fan park in Kiev before the Champions League final. Did the fan park in Philadelphia this summer before the Liverpool Arsenal game. You just got a sea of bodies looking at you, and that is a buzz. That's one of my favourite things.
The adrenaline.
Yeah,
I mean, I like it. It's the same as me being on stage, and it's you you can't really put into words that feeling. It's first of all, it's terrifying before you go on. I mean, it's really, really nerve-wracking because you just think, what if I can't remember what to do? What if I'm shit at this?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an element of that. Like at that Kiev fan park stage, about halfway through, all my plans for that went out the window because of the way the stage was set up and what the stuff we had access to. And about halfway through, I was like, we've got half an hour in. I've got no idea what we're going to be doing for half an hour. And my head went completely. I put a song on and stepped behind stage and went to Chris, right, oh my God, like, I can't, what the fuck are we going to do? Like, what do we do? And he just kind of, like, just along the lines of like, he had a few more pints than me at that point. He was just like, be fine, let's just go out and just sing some songs. And I was like, all right, cool, sound. I actually don't get too nervous anymore.
Do you not?
No, because there's a degree to which I think if you're learning lines, I think that's different.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
because
maybe it is.
you know, because improv is only where you can only improvise as much as the person your opposite can improvise. And we tend to just kind of shoot from the hip quite what we do. And me, Chris, and Steve known each other that long that we've got such a good camaraderie that one person will pick it up and then they'll run with it, and then we'll hand it back. And there's something special we've got, which I'm very lucky to have in that regard. But broadly, yeah, it doesn't. It's fine, you know. But it's exciting, and I get a buzz off it. And walking off at the end, and that euphoric feeling is something else.
The O2.
Yeah. That's Millennium Dome, that mate.
The Millennium Dome. Do you remember when they stole all those diamonds from the Millennium Dome?
Yeah, do you remember? I went there as a kid in like 2000-ish when it was like...
Was it shit?
It was rubbish, yeah.
Well, I thought it was shit.
It was basically all of that kind of like game stuff that they put in museums, where it was the stuff that teaches you a lesson about something. So there was a giant table, football table, and it had like a dozen on each side, and it wasn't about playing table football. It was about you've got to work together as a team to play table football. Cool lesson. Thanks, Millennium Dome.
Organised fun.
Yeah, could have gone to Alton Towers, but we never. We did edutainment at the Millennium Dome. Anyway, yeah, played there. It was good.
Oh, it's still an achievement, mate. Still an achievement. Oh, it's incredible. It really is. What's the future looking like for RedMen? I know you said you don't necessarily, and I don't want to make this the big point of the chat that you don't enjoy it necessarily as much, but I think you probably do. I think what you meant was that it's just become more of a job by now. But what's that look like going forward?
Well, it's, to be honest, what it is, it's creative fulfillment is important for me, because RedMen TV exists because I needed to be creatively fulfilled whilst also earning money, you know, so that I could do that as a living. So that's a weird thing sometimes. And what I mean by not enjoying it as much is simply that it's become functional, and it's had to become that. It's professionalized. It's become what I need it to be, and that is to say, it could exist without me there, and it can continue to live. And I that's kind of what I want. Legacy is important to me, so I love the idea of that just being a permanent fixture of the Liverpool world for forever and ever and ever. Whether my kids are arsed enough to take over, it almost doesn't matter. That can exist because so much other stuff around football continues to exist. So why can't RedMen continue to be a bit of an institution long term? But for me, it's about finding things that it's about doing new and interesting stuff, and that's why I love the live show elements. I love making documentaries. I love interviewing people. I just love meeting new people. And there will come a point where football's quite cyclical, and you get through a lot of the same sort of storylines. You do get amazing, mad moments. It always finds new ways to surprise you. But I also like that it was one idea, RedMen. What was next on the list? Well, there were like 3 or 4 things that were below it in the list, which I then never got to. So what I want to do is see whether I can
see what those look like.
Yeah. And the good thing is that what comes next is a bit of a free hit, because if RedMen can stay stable, then I can try some stuff out without fear of capsizing our entire lives at home with doing it, which is
having a really, really uncomfortable conversation with Chris. So the RedMen's over.
Yeah. I fuck that. But yeah, no, with that, and that's the thing with my part of my wife's been with me throughout all of this, and she was there in those like middle of the night where I'd be in tears saying like I can't do anything else. She's like, you need to go and earn more money, and I'm like, well, this is going to work. Well, what if it doesn't work? It will work. But you need to imagine it won't. I can't imagine it won't because I've tried the other stuff and I can't imagine living a life where I have to do, I've done 9 to 5s, I've done all kinds of jobs. I was like, that's not what I want or can do. I know I can do things. I just got to get it working. So yeah, the next thing doesn't have to have that level of jeopardy to it, which hopefully will be freeing in its own way. I'm always reminded of the Forrest Gump line when he sat on the bench and he gets told about how they invested in Apple, or in Apple, and he says, "We'll never have to worry about money again." He says, "Good, that's one less thing." I like that idea of what does a life look like when you're not fighting for your life to keep the lights turned on. That's the next sort of challenge.
Yeah, I think I remember listening to an interview with Jimmy Carr, and he says the meaning of life is enjoying the passage of time, and that always really stays with me because I'm similar. I'm self-employed. Yes, I have got a sort of day job, quote unquote, but I'm doing this of my own volition. I've got other ambitions. I want to do more presenting work. I want to get myself out there and be my own entity. And that comes with so much pressure. We put so much pressure on ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
We question ourselves and we worry. And I haven't got children. They call me a free range adult. I've got no wife or children. I know it's lovely, that, isn't it? Yeah. But I still have pressures and worries and responsibilities to myself. And I think often we get bogged down in all of that stuff.
Well, and also because you're forever stuck with this. There's a great Mitchell and Webb sketch where someone comes in and he says, "How was your day?" And he says, "How's your day at the hospital for sick and dying children?" He says, "Oh yeah, it was really hard. Like a young child passed away, whatever." "How was your day working at the ice cream factory?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I had a really bad time working at the." And I always feel like that. Like when you've got a job working at the ice cream factory, it's very difficult to tell people when you're having a bad day or you're having a hard time, and then it's hard to. You feel like you can't. You feel cheeky or like you shouldn't be upset or you shouldn't be having difficulties or pressures because, come on, like my granddad was a coal miner, for God's sake, you know what I mean? And I sit in a room and talk about football. What's stress? Yeah. Really? But it's stress is to you whatever stress is to you. And that's, I think that, is one of the more difficult things about having non-traditional ambitions, because finding a way to navigate through the hard part of that it can be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think it is just finding those moments of joy, I think, and being mindful, just actually appreciating that we are sat here having a chat in a lovely studio. This is a nice time. There's no pressure on us right now. This is lovely. Yeah. I can remember this feeling later on today when I'm stressing about my inevitable tax bill that I've got to pay on my birthday, by the way.
Nice. Well, no, but you're dead right on that, because I think about this a lot. So since my mum was diagnosed with dementia, I'm thinking a lot more and more about the idea of memory and what you recall and what you don't, and how, I think there's lots of specifics, and coming up on the RedMen anniversary, I'm trying to think back to things that we did, and some of it, I'm surprised at some things that's not there anymore. And I did this reading the Phil Knight, the founder of Nike's book, and when he said he had to call upon people to go like, what did we do with this huge decision? I'm like, surely you'd remember the day that you came up with the logo, but he had to ask people who were in the room to kind of fill in the blanks. But the point of this is that so much of the small detail goes. What you're left with is the general sense. Did I have a good time that day? Yeah, I remember feeling warm and happy, and I remember laughing. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was that was the joke or the wording of the joke that got the laugh out of me, but in time you'll remember that, you were there and it was an enjoyable time. The smaller parts get lost, and that's actually okay.
I've started a journal. I've started journaling, and I'd really recommend it.
I'm never more than like 5 feet away from a pen and a piece of paper.
Get a proper journal. Yeah. Get a proper journal and write these things down. What happened today? What went wrong? What went right? What am I looking forward to tomorrow? What was the general mood of the day? Did anything brilliant happen? I remember years and years ago when I was living in London. I was living with this stand-up comic, and he always journaled. And I always thought I could always never get over it. I was like, what are you, like a 12-year-old girl? what are you
He's got a
doing?"
padlock on it.
Yeah. It had flowers on it. It was weird. But he used to refer back to it all the time, and it was almost like he had a photographic memory, but it wasn't. It was that once or twice a year, he'd just flick through his diary and be like, "Oh yeah, that happened." And he always told this amazing story on the day that he met his wife, or his future wife. He was meant to be meeting an agent in London that day, a comedy agent, and he'd written on that day, most important day of my life. He'd written on this page, and he went for this meeting with this agent, and it went terribly. And he said he came out and it was pissing down with rain on Oxford Street or somewhere, and he huddled in a shop doorway, and this girl ran in to take shelter, and he ended up marrying her like 10 years later. And he went back to his diary and it said the most important day of your life.
I love that. Yeah, the structure of that is I don't think that's quite for me, but I have got a stack of notebooks over the last 20 years that I pulled them out the loft over the summer with the idea of going back through them. And one thing I did do in doing so was I discovered there's a book that I'm writing at the moment, which is like a science fiction superhero type thing, that I actually started writing before RedMen. So actually in that list, it technically sits above RedMen TV because I've got a note going, and this is the next part of the character development, and then the next page is like ideas for the RedMen pilot on the next
No
page.
way.
I was like, oh wow, and I hadn't placed that quite in my head, but I've got that sat in the back of smoky rooms making notes on character notes on stuff for a decade is there to be recalled at some point. But yeah, some of the finer points of my life I'm happy to consign to the consign to the Bing Bong graveyard to quote in the Inside Out.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same as you, mate. I'm exactly the same as you. The other thing I really wanted to touch on was you personally. Like, the most important question, I suppose, and one that I probably should have asked at the beginning of our chat is, how are you?
Yeah, I am. I think I'm the best I've been in a while. I came through Christmas 2024, and I've come out the other side into 2025 feeling really invigorated. And I think what I do is I every year, I do a bit around New Year, but certainly the night before my birthday, which is early January, I always put a little status update, and it's not really for public consumption. It's just there because I love looking back on them, and just says, here's what this year's been, ups and downs, and how I'm generally feeling. And it's so funny now because that's like 14, 15 odd years of these statuses, and seeing how I've generally gone. You could plot a graph of ups and downs, and the last few have been really down. It's 2 years since my mum got a diagnosis, and that's hit me ridiculously hard. And then also kind of bobbing along with work and not feeling like I've got a really creative outlet and things, and kind of just earning money rather than being fulfilled and stuff. Whereas I had a real, I got my notebook out again and started writing stuff down over Christmas. So yeah, for the first time in a couple of years, I actually, I'm feeling quite buoyant about life. Yeah,
you seem really positive. You seem quite ambitious as well.
Yeah,
and I always think ambition's always one of the first things to go when we're struggling with things, because you can't look far ahead. You don't have a tomorrow. You're like, I need to get through this shit right now.
I've had a couple of years of this thing where I haven't felt capable of dealing with things beyond a couple of weeks ahead.
Yeah.
And that's not how my brain is meant to function and has ever functioned. So it's kind of like I know I've got this thing, and this thing. And when I tick one thing off, it allows me to look at the thing that's just beyond the next thing. So it's like a bit like tracks on a tread tracks, you know what I mean? Like it kind of rolls around. So once you get over this next step, the next thing comes into line of sight. And that's not really how I do. I like to think in terms of like, I think in big terms, in 6 months and years and 5 years and that kind of thing. Also turning 40 a couple of years ago, I've probably wrestled my way through a midlife crisis at some point during this, which has been an ongoing thing. But I think ambition, you're right. It's hard to have ambition if you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, or it's great having ideas, but you've got to be ready to fight for them. You've got to craft time in your life. I've always often said, if you want to do something that's outside your norm of going to work, making sure there's dinner, putting the kids to bed, bath time, you know, spend a little time with your partner. You've got to carve that extra time. It's like carving out a marble. It's not Play-Doh. It's not therefore it's not a door you can open and walk into another room, because you've really got to shape that time for yourself. And that effort, just making the time is effort in and of itself, without then how you then use that on top of the stuff. So yeah, it's I'm feeling ambitious again. Which is nice.
You seem in a good place, man. I'm sorry it's been tough. I'm sorry about your mum, mate. I wasn't going to bring it up, but that's fucking brutal.
No,
mate.
it's the honestly the fucking worst. It's the absolute fucking worst, and it's. Again, no one tells you when you're growing up that at some point you'll have to parent your parents, and that's at the stage we're getting to now, where my mum and dad are in their 70s. My wife's mum and dad are separated, but they're a little bit younger, but they're getting towards that as well. And there's just things where you've got to step in. Like, I was a few years ago, we had to do this before we knew the diagnosis, but like we had to do a little intervention on like drinking and stuff like that. And I'm getting phone calls in the night saying, we need you to come round and help do this. Like, no one tells you to expect those things. You just presume your parents have got it. They've got it handled. And then when you have kids yourself, you go, oh, Jesus, I haven't got this. And then you say to your parents, did you have this? And they're like, no, we were making this up. We were making this up as we went along. And my mum's a rock. Like, she's the one. She's the positive one. She's the happy one, the loving one, the smiling one. And you think those type of people always think those type of people are soft, but she's fucking not. She's the one who would like, you know, she's a negotiator. She would never seek confrontation, but my God, if you bring confrontation to the doorstep, she'll be in your face. You know, I remember being a kid, going around to my aunties, her sisters up in the northeast, and one of the parents or one of the families over the street had said something to me cousins and horrible, and I won't go on the march. I go across the street to go and sort this guy out, because that was her. She sees that as a role. You know, if she needs to step up for you, she'd step up for you. Then the loss of that has been the hardest part.
Loss of that strength.
Well, yeah, because it's just a loss of, like, it's everything. You know, she's there and she's this wonderful, all the positive sentiment is left, and she still remembers stuff from the past. She'll knows who we are for the moment, which is great. But you can't have you can't have a conversation anymore, because you can't say what he's been up. You know, and in some regards, it's probably no bad thing, because you're losing a lot of the bollocks conversation that you would maybe have, but you can't really have any great depth of conversation anymore. And you don't realize how much you've lost that until, because you don't use that every day. But when you want to reach for it and it's not there anymore, that's been really, it's just shit.
It is. It's really, really hard, especially when it's a family member and you've got that connection, and you want to help and you want to support and you want to fix things ultimately, and you feel a bit powerless. And then whenever I'm going through stuff like that, I always start feeling quite selfish that I'm going about my day and I've still got these opportunities and this amazing, I'm going onto a TV set and I'm recording a podcast. I always get really bogged down with guilt about it all as well.
Yeah, it's it's insane, because my thing is I just like to come up with solutions to things. Yeah. I don't really believe in unsolvable problems. It's just I haven't figured the answer out to it yet. But you can't figure the answer out. And so the thing I've really found hardest to place is, so again, I just love conversation and I love talking and I love empathy is a big part of what I do. It's trying to find other people's perspectives and unlock doors to be able to have deeper levels of conversation and meaning with people. So if someone's not getting it, then I see, if you're trying to explain something to someone and they don't understand, that's not their fault. I just haven't explained it right. And I haven't found a way to explain it at their level or whatever, and that's on me to find that. Because if I want them to know it, then my responsibility is to learn how to deliver that information. And so when she doesn't remember something, you're going, "Oh, I'll try this and I'll try this." There has to come an acceptance with this is the reality of what it is, and a changed understanding of what you can and can't do, and trying to find ways to be happy with what you've got as opposed to worrying about what it is you've lost. And so, yeah, I'm definitely more positively philosophical about it, because it's not getting better. And that's, I think if you stop and think about it too much, I'd never get up again,
No.
you know, because that's, because it's the cruelty of it.
It is
Because you start to look around at other people's parents and other members of my family, and you just think like, well, that's not fair, you know. Like, and and look, it's one of them. I mean, mum is she was head of special needs at a school in Croxteth for like most of her, you know, working life. She worked in Crocky for probably 40 odd years as a teacher. She was head of the special needs department, go out of her way to help people, you know, on a day-to-day basis, you know, religious, church goes. She's the kind of person who believed that her saying Hail Marys and All Fathers would keep their family holiday plane in the air. You know, that the kind of person she was. And it's like, well, you know, like there's bellends out there. You know, there's horrible people who will never have to have that kind of stuff befall them. And not that you would wish it upon someone, but it does make you go,
but it's still not fair.
Yeah, the cosmic unfairness of someone who's a good person losing that in themselves. And for me, the selfishness comes from, I worry about what that means for me and what that means for me in a long time. And apparently it's not something that's necessarily passed down, but you start to think about God, like, how would I, that because your mind is the most powerful thing. I wouldn't want to lose anything, but as a creative person, you know, the idea of not having that, being able to do that, able to remember things anymore is, it's the worst. It's the absolute worst. And just to see that happen to someone that you love more than anyone else is just fucking horrendous.
Yeah, it really is. I'm sorry, man.
No, but again, I think if we'd done this a year ago, it would have been a much more difficult thing. But it's, you know, we're trying our best to. Yeah, we've done our bit in certain ways to help. The family are adapting around it. She's happy.
She's happy. She's safe. She's comfortable. That's, you know, she knows who you are. You can still have those moments of love and warmth.
And that's it. And all, you know, actually I see her most mornings when I go to pick my nephew up to take him to school, from there, and just, you know, she just gets a bit starry-eyed and a bit like, oh, it's great that you're here. And you can give her a kiss and a cuddle, and that will make her, you know, that moment. So what you're saying before is that she might not remember that moment 10 minutes later, but she definitely felt it. And in that, there and then, she absolutely experienced that happiness, and that's all I can give her, because I can't worry about what she remembers or what she doesn't, because there's nothing I can do.
100%, mate. 100%. I'm glad you're looking after yourself anyway, mate. That's really great to hear, man.
Yeah. Well, you've got to.
Have you got healthy practices?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you said before you and Chris kind of check in with each other a little bit.
Yeah, look, my wife is a big advocate on mental health side of things.
She's great, Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie's the best.
She's really great.
But she's got a history of mental health issues within her family as well. Her dad's had issues, and she's had her own issues. So we've kind of always had that. That's always an underlying undercurrent of our lives, of making sure we try to keep on top of things and we're looking out for each other. So we have this thing now, and we never used to, because you just didn't know to recognize these things. But you can just say, I'm really struggling today. Yeah. I'm having a really bad time with this. Can you help? And more often than not, you know, as long as you're not absolutely up the wall, coincidentally at that time, and even so, you find ways to alleviate things for each other. Yeah, we always say, we've got each other's backs.
That's lovely, man. And you can always, you know, I always think if you're close to someone and you say, I'm struggling, it's like, right, do you need a cuddle or do you need advice?
Yeah.
Do you want me to help you fix it, or do you want me to comfort you?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. You know, honestly, like I've been into counselling a couple of times over things. I say I'm fortunate in some ways. I definitely suffer from low times, definitely. It's a lack of control that's my problem, and sometimes actually waiting things out. So you know that you've made all the moves you can make, and sometimes it's like planting seeds. You know, you've planted the garden, and I know those trees are gonna grow, but sometimes you've got to wait a year for that to happen, and that's when I get really sort of edgy, and I need to find other ways to kind of occupy myself, or what have you. So what I found, the thing I needed counselling most for was things that were not within my sphere of control, and actually being able to take a breath and and allow myself to, to feel, it's fine to be down. It's fine to have a tough time. You don't need to battle against yourself sometimes. It's actually go and lie in a dark room and put some miserable music on and actually, but embrace it. Actually allow yourself to feel that and then get pissed off with how down you feel and then sort of use that as a momentum to slingshot yourself back up. As it can be a way to do it sometimes.
Yeah, and it's really therapeutic to do that. To have a bit of a cry and to scream into a pillow, especially if you're going through things like with your mum or whatever. Just to go, I'm not coping. I'm gonna go and have a scream and a cry. That's totally valid. And I think the more that we encourage each other as men to to have permission to do those things and that it's okay. I've got a chap coming in after you to talk about. He's a musician, and he's got an album called "Vulnerability Is the New Cool," and it's all about being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's that at its core. It's fine. We all this pressure that we put on ourselves to, it's all right. It's okay.
Well, it's tough for what we do because football is seen as this hyper masculine environment. And look, you've got men jumping up and down and crying tears of joy when teams score. No. So the emotion's there, but actually the vulnerability, you're not allowed to show that. So you can't show that you're upset. Everything's got to be like stoic and take it, puff your chest out and take it on the chin. It's bollocks. Like,
well, because you're doing the HTV stuff as well, which is obviously separate from the RedMen. That's your own brand, your own channel, a chance for you, as I think you said, to explore different sides of your personality and actually just to show people what it's like to be you in quite a fun way.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? I guess what I'm asking is how deep are you going to go on that in terms of how you are feeling and how you're dealing with things?
I guess I'll see. I'm open to opening up.
I think knowing you as I do, you're a very sensitive guy. You're in touch with your emotions. You speak very, very well. I think that would be a wonderful opportunity there to say if God forbid it ever happens. You say, I'm not doing okay, I'm not doing great today.
One of the things I've always struggled with is actually asking for help when I need it. And that goes back to like school, I'd never liked not knowing the answer. So I'd rather just keep quiet until I figure it out or someone else, or I can find it out. And then I'll go from there. So actually, when we talk about this idea of manifesting things, I'm a big believer in that. You often find that if you work hard and you you're nice to people and you just you're as good as you can be. When you've hit a wall and you can't work out where you're going next, that's often when you find out that you're in other people's thoughts, and that's when an email will drop in or a phone call will happen and things tend to move outside of your sphere. But you've got to kind of set that up. So yeah, I think it's more about just showing who I am, because I used to want everyone to like me. And that's not possible. And I've discovered that. So, give a good example of this. So, Ellen DeGeneres has just done a stand-up tour, and off the back of being cancelled because she was seen as not being very nice, and she's gone from being the media darling to not being nice. And there's a line in that stand-up where she basically says, "If you're a prick, people then meet you and are pleasantly surprised when you're not a prick." So they go, "Oh wow, he's actually really Roy Keane." People meet Roy Keane. They go, "Roy Keane is a delight." but when they see him out in the media, they go, "God, what a narky knobhead." But actually, if you are nice and portray yourself as nice, people are desperate for you to not be. So when it goes back the other way, people are almost like, "Oh, they don't want you to be nice." And then when you find out that you find out that you've got a weakness and or whatever, you're vilified for it the other way. Whereas
not caring what people think about you is such a revelation.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've only had that for probably the last maybe 5 or 6 years. I simply don't give a shit.
Well, I realised there was a point in my life where once I'd had my kids and there was no plans to have any more, every decision I'd made prior to them being basically conceived, but let's say born, was fixed in stone. Because if I had a time machine, because of things, this is how my fucking stupid sci-fi brain works, but the butterfly effect, if you went back and changed even the slightest things, those two kids wouldn't exist the way they exist, and I wouldn't change anything about them for the world. So it meant I could put my past to bed and stop worrying about, should I have asked this girl out, or should I have gone to that meeting, or should I have gone and, or should I have left this this place at this time, or shouldn't I have had that extra drink, all that kind of stuff. It was all done. It was all fixed. So that helped me with, like, you know, up to about 12 years ago. And then this next stage has been a bit like, well, again, you know, I love my wife, I love my kids, I've got this job, I've got this thing that I've created that I'm proud of. I've got, you know, a degree of notoriety that's come with that, cool. But, you know, so people can kind of, like, people will either like it or they won't. And you can't please all the people. There's people out there who seem to hate me, who have never seen anything beyond me just talking about Liverpool Football Club, but will have an intractable opinion of me. Well, I can't do anything about them. All I can do is, there's a much smaller group of people who might care, who might be interested in me doing that, and it's something that I enjoy doing. Then that should hopefully work. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, it sounds like the next kind of stage of your life is going to be self-fulfillment.
Yeah.
You've got the beautiful wife, you've got the fabulous children, you've got the job that you've created yourself, that you're proud of, that is your thing. And as you said, it's just running now. It's this beast that we're feeding. Amazing. You've got the notoriety, you've got the opportunities, you popping up on Sky. I know they have you on. Honestly, every weekend I put the telly on and I'm like, there's Mate. Every week. It's no bad thing, by the way. I'm certainly not complaining.
Saturated.
Yeah, I know. It's not. I'm normally about to masturbate, so it's a really complicated moment.
Perfect time.
No, but you've got all these things set up. So maybe the next stage of your life is, right, what is it I really want to do?
Yeah. Well, let's say, you know, the thing of what it is that, you know, you want, when you say or do stuff, you want people to want to pay attention to what you're doing. So when I finish the book about the science fiction World War II superhero story, I want enough people to be interested in it because I've told them about it, that they'll want to read it. And when I move on to random things, you know, because it's the Liverpool thing is just an aspect of my. It's a thing I like. It's not my personality. It's a thing that I like and a thing that I do, and a thing that I've been passionate about. But I've got that for lots of other different things. And yeah, you know, again, people can like it or lump it, but it's what I want to do. So there's no need for me to be apologetic about it, really. I'll just go at it, and it might be massively less successful than the other stuff, but as long as it's something
I think it's about fulfillment. I think the next stage is about fulfillment.
Yeah.
Paul Machin, I wish you every single success. I know you're going to be amazing. I can't wait to read the book. I didn't even know you were writing a book.
Yeah.
Can I buy the rights for the screenplay, like, immediately?
Sure.
Wicked.
I've half got you earmarked for one of the characters in it already. Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Have you got an ability to grow like a handle, like a pencil mustache? Do you think? Like,
fill in the blanks later.
We'll work it out.
My Achilles heel can't grow facial hair for shit. Honestly,
it's not makeup's for. It's fine. We'll figure it out. Like,
mate, thank you so much for coming on, man. I've loved this.
Yeah.